that. And their test is next Wednesday. So today and tomorrow is our last new material. I think you guys will find this to be easy. And then Monday, Tuesday, test review, test next Wednesday on 6-4-6-5-6-6. Okay? So I'm going to give you the notes, get you started on your homework. Then I will tell you what I'm checking for homework. And while you're working on your current homework, I'll do the homework check. Okay? All right. So we're solving equations that have radicals in them. Radical equations. Oh, this is the time the class ends, by the way, because of the shortened. So I just want to get you guys. Might be at 11:56.
Which time is now?
11:17. Right here. Are you listening to music while I'm teaching? So that's why you can't hear what I'm saying? Okay, 11:56. Okay. So here's what we're doing. We're solving for x. The problem with these problems, or solving for a variable, whatever the variable is, the problem with these problems is that the variable is trapped under the radical. So we have to get it out, okay? And it's just following all the normal equation solving. So here we go. I wrote out the very, 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 very important rules that you have to know before you start. And it reads, be sure the radical is isolated before you begin. What do I mean by isolated? What do I mean? What do I mean? What does isolated mean? If you're isolated, you are what? Alone, by yourself. So we have to get the radical by itself on one side before we do anything to the equation, or really anything we do before we do anything to the radical. So what I mean is this plus 2 here has to go, all right? How do you move a positive 2 from one side to the other? We subtract it, okay? So that's the first step. Get the radical by itself. That's all that means. Sometimes your equation is given to you already in this form, so you don't have to do that first step, but that is the first step. And guys, you know how we solve equations? We do opposite operations, like we just did. When you see a plus, you do minus. When you see minus, you do plus. When you see multiplication, you divide. Division, you multiply. Those are opposite operations. So what would the opposite of a square root be? Square. Yeah, square. So look, you can do anything you want to an equation as long as you do it to both sides. So I'm going to square this side. I'm allowed to do that as long as I square this side. Okay? So look, squaring a square root gets rid of all of the junk. We're just left with 3x minus 5. It's free. Look how easy that was. The radical is gone. And then when you square a 4, you get 16. The rest of the problem is just solving for x. I'm going to add 5, divide by 3, like you've been doing since, what, 6th grade, 7th grade? I don't know when you started learning this stuff. So plus 5, I get 21. Divide by 3. Divide by 3, and x is 7. So the solution to this equation is 7. Okay? Look at example B. Is the radical by itself on one side the way we have it now? Is it alone? No. Who's standing next to the square root of x? This 3. This 3 has to go away before we can square both sides. Thanks, Aaron. Okay? So, opposite operations. In the problem we did a second ago, we did the opposite of plus 2, which is minus 2 to move it. What does it mean, do you think, to have a 3 right up against the radical? What operation does that represent? Does anyone know? Multiply, right. This is multiplication. The opposite of that is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to isolate the radical. And now that the radical is by itself, that's when we get to do the square of this side, the square of that side. And when you square a square root, it gets rid of all that. And you're just left with what's under the radical. That's called the radicand, what's left underneath. And then 3 squared is 9. Easy peasy. Now look at the difference between B and C. Mistakes happen here. Notice that in B, the 3 is right up against the radical, meaning multiplication. Opposite of that was division. But this guy is separated by a plus sign. So this does not mean that we're multiplying by 5. It's 5 plus this. I still have to figure out how to move 5 to the other side. Anyone want to take a educated guess? How do we move 5 to the other side? Yeah, it's the same. If I gave you this equation right here, so you don't need to write this, just look. If I gave you 4 plus x equals 7, to get the 4 to the other side, you would subtract 4, and then you're just left with a positive x, which is just x equals 3. Same idea. Subtract 5 from both sides. Can I take a notes mark? Square root of 3m plus 9 equals 5. Now what do we do? Square. Square. Square this side. Square that side. Remember, that is the opposite of a square root. So squaring a square root leaves you with that radicand, the numbers and or letters under the radical. That's nice. It's clean. It's by. 5 squared is 25. And now you just solve for m, right? We would subtract 9 from both sides. I get 16. Divide by 3. And m is 16 divided by 3. Okay, I would not write that as a decimal on my paper. I would hit math, enter, enter. Oh, it's just 16 thirds. If my decimal was like 0.5, I could leave it if it terminates. But if I have to round it or something, I'm going to go back to fraction land. Okay? Good? So we're on page 359, 1 through 6 all. I'm going to do number 1 with you. And then I'll put the key up that actually has the problems as well. So if you're somebody that for some reason doesn't have page 359, you'll be okay because I'll have the page up there. Okay? All right, let's get our paper set up. C15, page 359, numbers 1 through 6. And I'm going to start with you. If you want to change the letters to X's the whole way through, you can. You can use the letter they gave you or change the letter. It's up to you. Hello. What? Why is everybody so late? Huh? Oh, the schedule got you mixed up? Okay. There's a lot of people absent today. Okay, so what are we going to do first here? Anybody? No. I'm glad somebody said that, though. We divide. Right. So how do we know? Because if you had to explain to someone, like you guys kind of look at this stuff and you don't really think about what it means. You just kind of know somewhere in your brain, typically. Okay? A number right up against something means multiplication. Think about like parentheses. You know, that's multiplication. You would distribute there. 5x, you would read that as 5 times x. This is 5 times the square root of x. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I have the square root of x equals 1/5. Square the left side, square the right side. So I'm left with x here, and now we have to deal with a fraction to a power of 2. It's almost easier to do it by hand than in your calculator. Guys, 1/5 squared simply means this. Square your numerator, excuse me, square your numerator, square your denominator. And if you had put it in your calculator, you would have ended up with a decimal of 0.04. Either one is fine. That or that. Either one is fine because it terminated. Okay. Now the key I'm going to put up does not show the work. You have to find the answers. Yes, sorry. You fixed it? Okay. You need what? Okay, guys, I'll provide paper like when we graph, but I don't provide paper for homework every day for you guys. A lot of no, it's okay. I'm not doing anything. You're just like one of many people who's asking for paper. Because you have to provide your own materials, okay? Graph paper, I don't make you go buy it. I give it to you. But we're not graphing, so you can just use regular paper, okay? In a pinch once in a while, I'll give it to you, but I don't want you guys expecting me to provide materials for you. Okay, so here is the key. Marcus, if you want the notes, you can come and grab one for me. All right, so those are just the answers. You need the work. So if you don't have the page, there they are. We will have a homework check in just a few minutes. I gotta finish taking attendance. Gabriel, you were here yesterday, right? Okay. I didn't write my attendance in here yesterday. Oh, Riley, you're here today. Yay. Come on, guys, let's get off our phones and do our math. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. I'm going to put the homework assignment up here so you guys can start looking for it. And I'll come around in a second. I read it up there. 612. You're good. That's perfect.
Thank you.